Yes, I'm going to talk about heaven's languages again. I've talked about it once, but I think it's really worth repeating, talking about it again in just a different avenue. So God's been showing me some really interesting things. The last one I did on the languages of the kingdom had a dream that God showed me these languages, but this one I'm just going to talk about the languages. So basically there's two kingdoms, and so originally there was only one kingdom, just Jesus Christ and his kingdom, and he is like pure adrenaline and excitement and happiness. And then so when Satan decided that he wanted God's kingdom and he wanted to be worshipped as God and he wanted the kingdom position, he challenged God and he fell, and he took a third of the angels, so he was very influential. So it divided the kingdom of God into two kingdoms. So now there's two kingdoms. There's the kingdom of God, and which is love, perfect love, and then there's the kingdom of fear. And so there's only two kingdoms, love and fear. And so we're worshiping one or the other. We are living for one or the other, and our language directly reflects the kingdom that we are choosing to live in. Even Peter, when he denied Jesus, he used some language that wasn't of the worshipers of God, and so even then people could tell by the languages that they were using whether they were with Jesus or not in those times. So God showed me that the kingdom language is the language of the Bible. So we need to be using the language of the Bible and applying it. And that is part of the spiritual warfare that takes place in our minds. Now, in spiritual warfare, your soul is being contended for. Even when you become a Christian and you're saved and sealed, your soul is still in contention. I mean, there's still a battle going on. You think that the enemy's just going to give up because you're saved and just give up on you and quit trying to trip you up? No. In fact, you could be in a more spiritual battle than before because you have entered into the spiritual kingdom. So we need to apply the kingdom language intentionally. Now, if you go to college and you learn a different language, or you decide you're going to learn Spanish, or you decide you're going to learn English, you decide you're going to learn Latin, Hebrew, a different language, you've got to apply the language. I mean, if you don't practice the language, you're not going to learn the language. Well, it's the same thing with the Bible. You've got to practice the word. You've got to apply it. It's not going to feel necessarily comfortable at first or familiar. It's something we decide to do because we're followers of Jesus now. The word has a lot of interesting things to say in it about our happiness. It might not use the word happy directly, but it uses the word joy. It says, God is joy unspeakable and full of glory, and the joy of the Lord is our strength. So you're not going to have any strength without joy. We need to let joy into our hearts and reign and rule there. There are no worries in God. He has no worries at all. If we're perplexed or worried, we just share it with him and we go back to him taking care of us. That is what trust and faith is all about, is that God is there. He knows our hearts and our thoughts, and he knows every situation we're in, and he's there to help us out and take care of us. We're either going to believe that or not. So we need to actually apply not being worried. So when worry comes in, it says, be anxious for nothing, but in everything in prayer and supplication with thanksgiving to God, let your requests be made known. And then the peace that passes all understanding will guard your heart and mind in Jesus Christ. So we'll have perfect peace. It says perfect peace casts out fear, and God casts Satan out of heaven. So he casts fear out, and God is an invisible God of love that we worship, and he's a spirit of love, which is patient, kindness, goodness, peace, and all those things we start applying to ourselves, and it's a discipline, every area of your life is in contention for, including your health, your happiness. Like, without your health and happiness, what else is there? I mean, if you're not happy, if you're not joyful in your heart and enjoying what you've got, what is there in life? That's what it's all about. That's what the spiritual warfare is about, is try to get you into worry and get you into fear and get you out of joy and get you into sickness and get you out of health. I mean, and then if they can start doing that, then they can start tripping your soul up. This is the whole idea behind spiritual warfare. It says it's common to man. This is common. It's not some foreign thing out there we don't recognize. This is what we're to recognize, the snares of the devil. Basically, we're to recognize that he trips us up, that he tries to get us into fear and into punishment, and we need to recognize that in order to combat it. Now, and we combat it with the word, and we resist the devil. It says if we resist him, he'll flee from us. So we need to resist in our minds to be worried and to be anxious and to be paranoid. We need to resist those thoughts, and we replace them with the word, which says that we think on whatsoever things are good, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are a good report. Those are the things that God tells us to think on, because we trust that he takes care of us and provides for us, and that with joy, the joy of the Lord is our strength. We have no strength without joy, without happiness. God is pure joy, adrenaline, and happiness, and we have, we have no peace or patience or anything without letting joy into our hearts. He's contentment, and there is nothing that can take us out of his hands. So that means we're always resting in him. We're always resting in peace and patience and joy, and we have no worries. And that is how we combat the enemy. It seems pretty simple, but that's the language that we need to practice in the way we speak, that there's no worries, that everything's going to work out, that God knows everything. It says to be content wherever we find ourselves. I mean, Paul, he said whether he abased or abound, he was content. He learned to be content. So it's actually something you learn, just like you learn a language. You have to learn the kingdom language and apply it. And he said whether he abased or abound, he learned to be content in all things. I mean, Paul, he was shipwrecked, he was stoned, he was put in jail, he was beat, and yet he was content in all things, because he knew that God knew exactly where he was, and he was there with him, and he was there to help him out of any situation he was in. So this was the little talk on languages and the difference between the kingdom language of love and the kingdom language of fear. And we're born into fear and iniquity, and we have to learn and practice the language of God's kingdom of love, which is power. It's power, love, and a sound mind. So we need to learn, and it doesn't mean we don't correct people. It doesn't mean we don't rebuke people. It says the word is there for rebuking and correcting. Jesus even drove money changers out of the temple with a whip, okay? And so there's correction involved in love. We need to understand that God created the hell, and that's a form of love, because the people don't want to be with him, and so he created an alternative place to be. And so we need to understand what type of love we're talking about. And this is a love that when you commit to Jesus Christ, you have no worries. He's there to take care of you every single day. It says don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow will have its own worries. This is why we need to know the word and what it says, so we can apply it into our minds and hearts. It's a discipline. We run the race with patience that's set before us. I mean, a race is work, it's endurance, it's discipline. It's what an athlete does. We are like the servants of the Most High God, and so we need to also have a focus, and we will not give up our health, and we will not give up our happiness to anything, because that's where we draw the line between the two kingdoms. So I hope you enjoyed the talk on languages today, and I will talk to you guys later.